All right, we are joined by Executive Vice President and Head of the Academy, Jeff Cook. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here with you guys.
Great to have you. So Jeff, just kind of give us a little overview. What's life been like since you joined the Right to Dream Academy here in San Diego?
It's certainly been a whirlwind, really exciting. We're still, as we speak, a little bit in transition, but everyone's been incredibly welcoming. It's a real pleasure to be part of San Diego Football Club, the Right to Dream Academy. I'm sure we'll talk about the global nature of Right to Dream, but also it's important to recognize the San Diego soccer community that's been here for years and years and years, for decades. And to be part of all of that when you put it together has really been special.
Yeah, how familiar of this landscape were you before kind of jumping into this position?
Certainly very familiar from recruiting over the years in my time in the NCAA. There's some legendary tournaments here, the Nomads tournament, the Surf tournament over the years. It's been so many talented players, President Company included, that have come through this region, Southern California and San Diego specifically. As someone who grew up, dreaming of playing soccer in the 80s in this country, the NASL, the MISL. So yeah, good familiarity, but to have lived here now in my third month has really opened my eyes to just how deep and passionate the soccer football community is in San Diego. And of course, we can't leave out Tijuana because I did have my first experience down there. So just this whole region is the potential, the history is significant and the potential is unlimited.
Present Company included, Sal.
Included, for sure.
What a great segue.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, and to touch a little bit about the Right to Dream. So you were traveling as well to their different academies in Ghana or Egypt. Which ones did you go to? And were they just trying to get you familiar with how things are run in those academies?
Yes, it's a great question. During the interview process, all the leadership of the club, both San Diego FC and Right to Dream, wanted it to be a priority for me to get to those locations. Later this spring, I will go over to Denmark to see our colleagues at FC Nordsjælland. I think the purpose of the trip, so I went to Egypt first. Okay. Coincidentally, there was senior leadership team meetings of the Right to Dream Global Group in Cairo. So I got to meet a lot of the people that do similar work and across all 4 locations came together. So that was, nothing like meeting face-to-face in these days of Teams meetings and Zooms. Those have their place, but in my opinion, there's still nothing like looking at people face-to-face and being on the ground. So that was fascinating. As someone who grew up in the Northeast, I think of New York City as a big city. Cairo with 32 million people just blew it out of the water. Wild. And so that was interesting, Sal, because the Right to Dream Egypt project is probably 3.5 years ahead of us in terms of when they launched and when they built. So it was really good to see that, to watch the sessions, to see the common methodology that's used across all 4 locations. And I had learned about that, of course, during our preseason here in San Diego when Fleming, Pedersen, Mads, Davidson were here. So that's a big part of it. So I spent about a week there and then transitioned to Ghana to see what I call like the origin story of Right to Dream. And that's just incredibly inspirational. I'd been to Ghana once before. It was my first time in the Right to Dream Academy. And just to see the story of what those kids are, what football and the opportunity represents for them, you can't help, you feel it, you see it every single minute that you're there. People doing incredible work. And it's strange in a way that the dreams that those kids have, boys and girls in the Ghana Academy, are the same in Egypt, same in San Diego. I'm sure very similar to what's happening in Denmark. So it was an amazing 2 weeks to see and see things in person and kind of get a sense for what Right to Dream really means at a very authentic level.
You kind of just touched on it there. I was going to ask you, what are some of the similarities and obviously probably some differences there as well between all of these global campuses that you've seen?
Yeah. One thing that I would want to hit on that really has struck me both in the visits and in person, there's an international pathway group. And I've been really impressed and committed to the idea that every player has a pathway and a dream. And it's not one of these situations like I think almost every other club in the world. At the end of the year, kind of coming now in the next couple months, clubs all over the globe are saying, you're coming back, you're not. And so that cutting or releasing process is incredibly painful. And I personally feel that if you're a coach or a talent evaluator and you can tell me what 14-year-old is going to play in the World Cup, I think you're crazy. And every player has their own pathway. And I love the fact that I've been on 2 international pathway calls now. They go through every single player in the whole global group, men, women, academic pathways, professional pathways, international, whatever it is, everyone has equal weight in terms of the importance that the organization places on making sure that everyone has a place to go and a place to pursue their dreams.
Yeah, I've found that amazing. I mean, I've played with a few graduates in the Right to Dream Academy, and just how well they speak, how well educated they are. I mean, they're such good people. Ima Boateng being here. I mean, just class people. And so I look at that and I think of, you know, all the people I don't know that have come through Right to Dream, and how they also did mention, like, they don't really release players, right? They want to not hold their hand, but they want to walk them to be a successful person, not just a successful soccer player or professional soccer player. And so there's, like you mentioned, so many pathways. If it's college, great. If it's professional, great. If it's whatever it is, they're good people. And so I've really liked that part of Right to Dream, because you hear so many horror stories of other academies where at 16, 17, they don't get picked up by the first team, and now they're gone, and now they have nothing to show for it.
And even sometimes in Major League Soccer, next pro, and I understand that all players have a dream, and you were the same. I was the same way back. You know, you have those dreams, but you see some players give up so much for such a small opportunity to make it. And if you put all of your efforts and focus on only one aspect and it doesn't work, you're often left in a really tricky position, you know? And I think that's true. The one comment, I mean, you had a great career, and I'm sure you had incredible successes. I know you did, but I'm sure in the private moments were some really challenging times too.
Absolutely.
And and one of the things you mentioned about the common work in the character and value space, preparing our student athletes to be able to handle those ups and downs is really important.
Huge. Yeah, I agree.
So when they leave the Right to Dream family, let's say they come and they play for San Diego's first team, and we've got some young players in our first team squad at the moment, in my opinion, have really bright futures to probably take the next step in their career, whatever that's going to be. But they may not be in the same environment, right? There might be a different style of play, a different manager who approaches things in a different way. And you have to be able to have success. In my experience as a first team player, you have to be adaptable and be able to believe in yourself when it might not be the same environment as what we have here, maybe FC Northland and so on. You know.
I want to dive into your history and your background a little bit too. But before we do that, what led you to Right to Dream? What was it that stood out for you?
I feel as if it was a coming together of a lot of different factors. You know, the opportunity here in San Diego, I mentioned before, the San Diego football community and the Tijuana football community, and the passion for this game. And it just, even in 1 year, or I guess partway through last year, when I started to look at this opportunity in the summer, you could already see the momentum and the excitement and the energy in the city and the community. So that was one thing, you know, what San Diego FC has built into it, the connection globally to Right to Dream. I've had the good fortune to work in Africa probably more than a dozen times with an organization called Grassroots Soccer. So I'd been in Africa a bunch, and knowing the opportunity that football could create in combination with the academic preparation, that connection to Egypt, Ghana, and to Denmark was very significant. And then the other thing, we talked a bit about the theme of everyone has a right to dream. I really believe that, no matter where you come from, what your background is, you know, whether you're a male, female player, it doesn't matter. That really attracted me. And at that time in my career, to be involved in something with a long-term commitment, as much as I did love the work I was doing at the NCAA Division I level, it was very rewarding. But to think of something that you could make an impact or contribute to a lot of great work that's going to have staying power was very, very attractive to me.
Yeah, I think that's when you talk to anybody here about just what this means globally and just the bigger purpose behind it. I think that's, you find that common thread across everyone that you talk to. But I want to walk it back to the beginning, the very beginning.
Okay, the very beginning.
How did your journey in soccer begin?
I was very lucky. Growing up in Western Massachusetts, about an hour from Boston, our gym teacher in school, in maybe 5th or 6th grade, happened to be from Germany. So our recess was soccer.
Nice.
And that was my first foray into the game. And I grew up in a area in Springfield, Massachusetts, with a huge Portuguese and Italian community. And so soccer from a very early age became something that I was just drawn to. You know, I'm old enough to remember TVs that you had to get off the couch and turn the dial, you know, and watch it was a show called Soccer Made in Germany that was on once a week, and you could watch Bundesliga games. And that was just, it was so, I suppose maybe just so different and exotic, this idea of a sport that was, I'm thinking back now, you're kind of embarrassing me to say, I graduated high school in 1985 and college in 1989. And I did play for a bit after college and whatever leagues were around then, nothing like what our colleague Sal was involved in, but, played as long as I could. And the World Cup in 1990, when the U.S. qualified with essentially a bunch of former college soccer players, was the first time that for me, that World Cup in Italy in 1990 was the first time soccer kind of came into the forefront of your being. It was on TNT Sports back in the day. And then, of course, the World Cup in 94. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate to be in New England at that time, coaching a Division III school. And I became the team liaison for Nigeria, World Cup 94.
Wow.
So I was on the ground with them for the whole team. So there's this theme about Africa kind of running through my career. So that was my initial, college soccer player, youth, Olympic development back in the olden days of ODP, did all that stuff. And just really had a connection to the game. I just think it's so powerful when you think about the global nature of the sport, that no matter where you are, it's a connector. That's the experience I've had anyway.
And taking like what you've learned from your time in coaching and working with multi different levels of players across all ages. When you look at what you can take from that into your career now, what's the biggest thing that you think you'll bring with you?
I don't know if it's experience or just being blunt and saying you're getting older. It gives you perspective to know that development is a process. And I'll quote Fleming Pedersen, our global technical director, this idea of an open mindset, a growth mindset, where we're working with these young guys here now that are born in 2013 and 14.
Yeah.
And it goes back to my feeling that every player has their own unique pathway. And Fleming said something that really hit me. He said, it's not fixed. Meaning if a young guy now who's in 7th grade is showing like he's got the greatest potential in the world, and maybe one of his teammates is maybe going through a growth spurt or some changes emotionally, it doesn't mean that's how they're going to be in 3 years. And so the ability to be patient and see the longer term and not have to feel like, I guess maybe a bit of a counterbalance to when you're in a coaching career, say in NCAA Division I, or maybe what you do at the first team level where you're more like, okay, we're playing Toluca tomorrow night. How are we going to come out and advance in the competition? This is really about how many guys in this organization right now and globally, how many young women can we get to play international football? How many can represent Right Dream at our collective first team level? So taking the longer term is something I think my experience, I guess, has allowed me to be able to have hopefully a bit more perspective.
I have a question. You've been around youth soccer for so many years now.
Mm-hmm.
What attribute do you think is the most important that you mentioned any 14-year-old, you don't know how they're really going to develop, or even 10-year-old, it makes it almost impossible to really know how they're going to get. Mm-hmm. What attribute is it in a player that for you is the biggest predictor of long-term success?
If I can sneak a second one in, the first one right away would be resilience.
Okay.
An ability to have this sense of deep belief in yourself to allow you to weather the storms that come. And in my experience, I never say, Sal, I quote unquote developed this player or I discovered so-and-so. I don't think any of that's true. All you can do is contribute to an environment that allows the talent to flourish.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I can contribute as part of for me to sit here and say like, oh, I'm going to develop the next greatest player that's going to play for the U.S. national team or the Mexican national team or Danish or whatever, that would be completely arrogant, right? But to say I can contribute to the environment to help, and because I think the guys that have had long professional careers are the ones that can recover from an injury. You get released and you have to go on a bunch of trials. You get rejected. You go to the next one. The easiest thing to do at that point is say, you know what? I've got a college degree. I'm gonna retire and go on and think. But so the players that I think very rarely is the career ascension linear, where it's nice and smooth. You go to UCLA, you get drafted, you play a bunch of games, you play for the national team, whatever. It's often really challenging moments that make you question, like, why am I doing this? Do I really want to do it? And so I think that's when it's driven for me by passion for the game, love of the sport, and there's so many examples we could talk about from our own SDFC first team. You think of you could probably come up with a bunch of stories about our 3 goalies right now. and how difficult that position is to navigate, and whether, you get first team opportunities, you get an injury, you get a suspension, and how that plays out in a career. I just think that's the number one quality for me, is that ability, on top of of course you have to be a good footballer and physical. So that the resilience piece and the durability are fundamental, I think.
Yeah, that's good. If we talk about alignment too, I think, Kaila, you remember this, but we sat with Mikey, I don't know, a few months towards the end of the season last year, and we asked him a similar question. Yeah. And his, response was also, hey, I would never take credit for a kid's development. I just want to be a piece of the environment that takes it. And so we talk about alignment, and that's already something you and Coach Mikey are. Yeah,
he was great. Last week he came out and spoke to the kids. We had our last talent ID center. And it was it was really impactful. The first time it was that strong connection between the first team and the academy. And he actually said at the end of it to the players and families, the kids' eyes were like this big, Mikey Varis is here, and like so exciting. And Mikey, as you know, so humble and really great with the kids. Like, I guarantee you, more than one of you are going to play for the first team one day. And the kids are there at trial. They're so nervous, right? It's the last time they get to show the coaches. So that was, just a fantastic moment to hear that. Yeah.
We talk about visualization a lot, at least the last 2 weeks with a couple of the players that we've gotten the chance to speak to. These athletes that are here, these student athletes, are in the same spaces as the first team, as where a lot of them are looking to achieve those dreams. What does that mean in this organization to have cultivated a space that creates that ongoing sense of visualization of your, future reality, hopefully?
It's such an important point that you make, and it changes everything. And you mentioned one of the things that draw me here when I came, and you see the cafeteria and the way that our first team are and our staff with the young players here and vice versa. It's so special to get those lessons, because I think as a leader in my role, or even as an academy coach, you can say all you want or run the best sessions, but there's nothing like a word of advice from a first team player. Hey, you took an injury, just keep going. I had an injury a couple of years ago. That connection is so
hold on to that
critical.
For so long as a youth player, that could stick with you.
Oh, it's just, just to see how they carry themselves, and then, going back to Mikey and all the staff and the way that the first team carry themselves is exceptional. That kind of lack of ego, the humility that's around, it does permeate the entire club. And to see that firsthand is irreplaceable, in my opinion.
I think a lot of our fans probably know this, or people who are listening to this podcast probably already have a general overview of what Right to Dream San Diego is. But if you could just give kind of a summary for what this program is and what it will look like maybe 5 years down the line.
Sure. It's so exciting. We're in the midst of the first year, and it feels like next year is coming really quickly. So we're planning, I'm really busy on the long-term plan. And I think for the supporters of this club, I'm incredibly impatient. I cannot wait for the first time one of our locally produced homegrown talents walks out at Snapdragon. Yeah. That will be, I actually stay awake at night sometimes dreaming of that moment, But to get there, it's going to take a lot of collaborative work. So we're going to grow year by year with adding a, quote unquote class of players each group based on football potential. And to be clear, that's the first marker. We're really fortunate. Our head of school, Rochelle Minix, and the academic team are doing a great job helping those kids develop off the field, which is crucial. John McGuigan and the scouts, Gabe Farfan, really doing an incredible job. We're going to have some really hard decisions to make coming up here in year two. So year two, we'll have about 30 to 35 players here. So it'll be 2 squads. And then we are working hard on plans to incorporate a girls' academy program, because we are right now the only one of the Right to Dream locations that doesn't have a girls' academy. So I'm working hard with local partners and what that's going to look like, because I think it's hard to say everyone has a right to dream except the girls. And I know no one means that, and we're just building. So that's a big part of it too. And this is obviously, like it is for the boys, unbelievable market for girls soccer, probably the best in the country, I would think, probably comfortably. So that's something that we're going to do. And in terms of what I'm doing to finish is, as we map out the next 5 or 6 years, the key point at the end of all this for the ownership, in addition to the production of homegrown talents that do have potential to play at the highest levels of the game, we're going to graduate student athletes who are eligible to go to college. So that's why the group that's here now in 5 years will be high school seniors.
Wow.
And so we've got to map out step by step how this grows. And I want to really emphasize that our goal, we want to be heavily weighted towards supporting San Diego talent. We have a scouts and we do have areas of focus, San Diego and Tijuana. We have some players, for example, from Las Vegas, Northern California, where we can, within the homegrown territory rules that exist currently. But, 85% of our young players we want to have from San Diego and Tijuana. This is why we're here. So we supplement that with top talents from other regions when it's appropriate. But I think to reassure everyone, the idea is to focus on the market and work with the clubs that have for years and years and years done so much good work. We want to be seen as partners, not as above or different, but as really good partners for the San Diego football community.
Yeah, selfishly, I coach a young girls team, very good team, and hopefully one day a few of them can end up playing here. But is there a timeline or a plan in place when maybe the girls' side will open up here at Right to Dream? I'm
currently working on that with the club leadership, and we have an academy committee meeting coming up at the end of April.
Okay,
I'm going to present some proposals in very general terms. I believe that we should follow the Right to Dream values and philosophies that we used building the academy here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not that I used because I wasn't here, but the fundamentals that go into establishing Right to Dream, where it's focused on football development, it's cost-free, it's opportunities for all, are some of the fundamental things. And then we need to get some advice from stakeholders. For example, questions like when is the right age to have girls in residency?
Yeah.
That's a very unique aspect of the Right to Dream model. I think that opportunity should be here for girls. And I think in terms of timeline, it's too soon for 26, 27, which is next year because it's coming in a matter of a few months.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think after that, I think it's highly, that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah.
Is realistic for the following year to add a cohort of girls and work with our partners. I mean, you've got the San Diego Wave building a successful NWSL franchise here, and there's so many, as I mentioned, great clubs have been established.
Sure.
So it's not, again, we want to be really careful that we're not coming in here and saying, well, we know everything about girls soccer and youth development, so we're going to take, other clubs have done that, and I'm sure you know who they are. We're going to grab your 5 best players and club down the street, your 5 best players, and then that's a great way to make enemies. And we don't want to get involved in that. But I think the timeline is in the near term, Sal, to be sure. This is not something that's coming 5 years down the road.
Yeah. Cool.
When you look at your experience, just looking back at all of the different systems you've seen, Philadelphia, you've spent a lot of time there, is widely recognized as a very great academy. What separates this organization and the way it's run from some of the best ones that you've seen in your career?
We spoke about it a little bit before, but I would highlight the secret superpower, as Fleming says, is our style play and our methodology. It's such a positive North Star that is the focal point. And I also have appreciated that it can be adaptable. It's interpreted in different ways, but the fundamental is there is that the style play and the lessons you're trying to teach the young players is about the way, or Mike says, how we win, who we win with, rather than, okay, we won the game at the U13 level, great. But did we play according to the principles? Did we apply the principles that are used week in, week out by the first team? And it gives everyone such a consistency. And I think that it drives confidence in a player. I don't know if Sal would agree, but when you go on the pitch as a player knowing what's expected of you, and you've been doing that since you're 11, 12 years old, and now you're making your first debut and you go into the system that's the same, your chances of success go off the charts. Yeah. As opposed to 1 week we're doing this and we're going to change because we have a different opponent. That I think is a secret formula that I've, in my experience, I've never seen such a well thought out, open-minded platform. And I would conclude the answer by saying a lot of places that I've been, the score is the North Star, and everything is related to the score. Did you win? Did you lose? As opposed to, did you do the right things? Because over time, that's going to be the thing that's going to drive success and that consistency, because it's easy to say you're going to do something, but when the pressure's on and you're down a goal away from home, are you still going to build out of the back? Are you still going to look to play in between the lines? Are you still going to look to press high? And if you look, at least in my observation of our team,
the first team, right?
First team, we do it. This is who we are, and we're going to win, lose, by doing the things. And I think it's been incredibly powerful to me. It's really just it hits me right in the head when you come in. That's it's just not negotiable.
Well, we've spoken to a lot of the young players, just on here, and that's what they say, like really help them breed their confidence and just like knowing that they have those principles to fall onto.
I coached CJ for a few years in Philly. And
I was going to ask
he talked about
that.
coming here and, the demand on the goalkeepers in particular and center backs probably. And, you got to take the ball and you've got to make decisions and you've got to take responsibility if it doesn't go well. Yeah. But one thing you're not going to see is us taking 15 goal kicks a game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's important, I mean, to be brave, right? And, and what's great too, from what I've seen is, mistakes will be made, but there will be a reaction to those mistakes from the higher ups of, hey, next one, or hey, let's keep working at it. This is what we want. We expect this, instead of, hey, what are we doing? We can't lose the ball here. And then now your brain is completely shifting and not feeling comfortable in this, game model. And like you touched on, I mean, preparation, it puts everything at ease. And so when you go into a field or anything in life prepared, you're going to feel so much better and so much more comfortable doing and performing well. And so I think that's shown with so many of the young players here.
I talked about this with Yeppe a few weeks ago after training, and that dialogue. And look, it's elite sports. So we can't shy away. We're trying to develop elite youth players. I mean, at the top of the game globally. And the first team are trying to win an MLS Cup and trying to advance in the CONCACAF Champions League, right? So it is elite and there's results, but I think the environment that's created here, where Yeppe was saying, I can speak to the coaches. And so it's not like you say, okay, you took a ball in midfield as a defensive center midfielder, as a six, you turn the ball over, okay, don't show for it anymore.
Yeah.
You made a mistake, so just knock it in the
It's
channel.
almost, why aren't you showing anymore?
Right, it's exactly, and so it gives you that reinforcement, okay, yes, I made a mistake, but I'm going to go looking again.
Yeah.
Not that Yeppe makes too many mistakes in there, to be fair, but I mean, it really does. It's that, again, that growth mindset of, okay, it didn't quite go well that time. We're not going to change until you do something different. We're just going to ask you to do it better. Like that idea that we're trying to help our young players read situations rather than play programmed. You get pressure, get rid of the ball, that kind of thing.
Yeah, when you learn that from such a young age, I think these guys have had some of these players coming into the system and not only having just last year and this year to be able to adjust to it, have all said just exactly everything that you've just said about how much it just breeds their confidence and allows them to continue to play free. Yeah. But when you start that at 11 years old and then hopefully ultimately you see someone making their, professional debut for the first team coming through the academy, it can only imagine just what that does for their career.
Really briefly, something that reinforces that, we do the same walkout meetings before training that the first team do, we being the academy coaches. And almost every day, the youth players will see a clip of the first team. Say we're working on a certain topic, playing into the pressure, and they'll see it. This is what you're going for. So and then the coach will clip an academy game. So the constant message of, here's us playing against Chula Vista U13s. Here's the first team against Sporting KC.
Yeah.
And that it gets baked into their, hopefully in their consciousness, that it just becomes like second nature over time. That's a real strong connection.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
We get so many questions asked to our academy channels from a lot of parents and also prospective even kids. Kids are on these channels as well too. Sure. Just asking to know kind of what the day-to-day is like as an academy player kind of going through life here. What does that look like?
Very demanding, very exciting. And these kids have unlimited energy because I'm staying here right now and I'll be going to my thing, like having a cup of tea, getting ready for bed. And they're like raging around the field, still playing at 8 o'clock at night. Like, I'm going to bed. Exactly. So that's one thing. No, they start early. It's, and it's about good habits, and getting the kids with the support of the staff into routines where they really they realize what their focal point is and their passion for the game is immense. So 7 o'clock in the morning, they're on the field. That's when we start with our walkout meetings with film. So it's an early start. They get up, have a snack. They're in the training room. So their wake up's around 6:15 to 6:30. They're down, and then they're training from 7 o'clock for about 90 minutes. And then breakfast is at 9:30. And then they start their school day right about 10 o'clock. And the kind of school window is 10 to say 3:30. And then 2 times a week, there's an additional technical session. And then we and then usually at least 1 game, sometimes 2 games a week on the weekends, which is we're working with MLS Next and the Academy Leagues to make sure the level of competition is appropriate for the development goals. And then Wednesday night, we have family visits for those that are here. And then the kids that are from a little further away or for some reason their families can't come on Wednesdays, we usually take them somewhere to get a dinner and get off campus for a little bit of a break. Fridays, they do community service and then games on the weekend. So it's a full-on 24/7. If you speak to our residential life staff, it is definitely a 24-hour day job. Lots of great stuff that's happening here. I mentioned the academics, but also a big part of Right to Dream is the character development. Brett Garner, they're very proactive. There's 2 character sessions a week. And I've been, we've all seen values or culture or character, these words thrown around, but the staff do a great job of bringing that to life. What does that really mean? How does that show up in your daily life? And I've been so impressed with the way that these guys approach their day. It's a very demanding schedule.
Is that similar to just like on the scale of what you've seen in academies? Have you seen that model kind of replicated elsewhere?
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, what's that look like in the landscape?
Yeah, Ghana train at 6:30 in the morning because it's so darn hot. So they've always gotten up early, and then the very similar schedule, and that was really good to see. Again, going back to like the first person experience, very similar setup in Egypt. And as we go through this, one interesting point is San Diego. We can't like move what's happening in Ghana here or vice versa. So it's got a San Diego flavor, and what we do here is within the Right to Dream principles, I would say, but then we're adapting that as we go forward to have a San Diego flavor. But yeah, the character, the academics, and the methodology, if you watched a training session in Egypt and some of the things that they work on, the concepts, and you watched a youth team here, you'd see a very similar approach, which is really, really connects everybody globally.
You mentioned the community service part. Does everyone do that in Right to Dream, even in Egypt and in different countries, or is that
they have community? No, they do community projects, not as frequently. The academy in Ghana is a little bit more remote. It's about a 2-hour drive from Accra, the main capital. So it's a little bit, but it's really interesting. So in the Ghana Academy, every day the kids walk from the school where the school buildings in cafeteria are through a local village to the football pitches. And so they do have some community interaction there. There's at the Right to Dream Ghana, there's a school for the young children, like preschool kind of level for the young children of the families in the village that takes place on the Ghana campus, which is amazing. And in Egypt, they're building a whole new city around it's in a place called Baja, pretty far west of Cairo, but there's a new university there. There's a community. And so, the interaction, that's part of giving back, is part of the Right to Dream ethos.
In your time here so far, have you been able to kind of collect a favorite memory?
Collect a favorite memory. There's been a bunch. I mean, the first game at Snapdragon was really special just for the club. I think it'd be hard to beat the moment when Brian came on and scored a goal, having just been there. And Sir Mohammed was in the building. Dan Dickinson, the CEO of Right Dream, was in the building. We had our board meetings, and for him to come on and score in a resounding 5-goal win at Snapdragon was pretty emotional. I was with Tyler and Mark Prezant watching the game, and I could see right behind him, Yepa found that great ball and then he had the defender on ice skates. Terrible feeling when you're a defender. I bet that you're backing up and it goes in, and I just said, oh my God, how could you do anything better? And again, going back to the vision that we have here is, when I watch training, I think who's that going to be in 5 years time? Which kid is going to catch a ball like that and break someone down and score? And that's when the supporters, and I just would ask, I think remind all of us the commitment is here, and what happened in Philadelphia with so many of the guys breaking through will happen here, and will happen even beyond that because of the investment. And you just need to give the players the opportunity, and they will shine. I think it's an incredible moment for SDFC.
I'm excited.
I can't.
That pumps me up.
I can't wait for that moment. I think everyone will really feel that.
It will. Yeah, working hard every day, and you do get impatient. Right? You don't want to fast forward your life away, but I can't. You come on. You're watching the clock until they get old enough to get out there, right?
Soon.
Yeah, I go when you read all the media, and was it Man United No, Arsenal played 2 16-year-olds.
Yeah, Red Bull's got a 16-year-old
and the Red Bull
too,
played. Michael came in and played some young guys. Michael Bradley.
Yeah.
We've seen 15-year-olds debut in this league as well too.
So it's not
around the corner.
It's not as far away as the boys.
There's any
might
team
think.
that's going to put some young kids out there.
Exactly.
It's going to be San Diego.
And as I've watched this, David Vasquez was in Philly, and I tried like crazy to recruit him to Penn State, and he came here, and he was more or less a second team player in Philly. And to give the first team guys credit, when they sign a player, they get a legitimate opportunity in the first team. And I think you see it happen with Luca, with Oscar, with. I might be forgetting someone. I apologize if I am, but David, you can
go down the list.
Coming
every
in
young
and just
kid has had an opportunity.
Yeah, Pablo, talking about resilience.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a guy that's been around the league for a while. He was in Spain. Pablo's mom, Christina Fink, was our performance psychologist.
Yeah.
So I worked with Christina for 5 years. Oh, wow. So I've followed Pablo's career. Goes on loan in USL, and it winds up. I thought he had a great season last year. Played big minutes and did great. And so all those stories are just so. That's what it's all about. And then we talk about what draw me to this kind of role. It's those things. Of course, we want to win championships and we want to compete at the highest level. That's within all of us, I think. But to see that connectivity this stands out really, really clearly to me.
I don't think I can wrap it better than that, but I do know we always get this question from parents and from kids as well. But if they want to be a part of the academy or want to look to be a part of it, where would they go to do that? So
on our academy website, there's currently an inquiry form. We have a team of scouts led by John and Gabe Farfa and Dirk Boateng, Lisa Berg and Chavikos. I think last year they feel pretty confident. We saw over 5,000 young players to get to the last 24 where we are now coming up in a couple of weeks. So that's the first protocol. And on there, you can find information on Major League Soccer rules, because there's a whole set of rules about who we can communicate with, what age groups we have. And as we grow year by year, as you know, we don't have a U17 team. And we do get a tremendous amount of interest from older players that want to be part of this because of the visibility. There's so much inbound interest, which we definitely appreciate. But that's the first source, is the academy page on the San Diego FC website. And you can get contact information there and information on how to request an evaluation.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being here.
Greatly appreciate the time and
really
everything.
Enjoyed it. Thanks for the engaging conversation. Look forward to getting to know you better in the future. Thanks both of you.
Likewise.
Yeah, thanks.